Lisa, if you would give your update on service projects, guys. She has got a ton going on.
Yeah, just to be really quick, I don't want to take time away from Dr. Cash, but coming up this Saturday, we have a habitat build out. We're supposed to be doing some landscaping from 8 to noon. I've had a couple of folks not end up being able to participate. So if anyone else is interested in helping us, please let me know if you can today. If you've already volunteered before, you don't need to fill out any form. If you've never volunteered, I'll need to get the form to you to fill out. But we've got the day coming up this Saturday. The next one will be August the 7th. That's on a Friday. And I'll need to get some folks to participate in that. Coming up, we have got Operation Christmas Child. We also have, hold on one second, sorry, peppy break. Operation Christmas Child, of course, is coming up. We'll want to start gathering school supplies and different things, stickers, gloves, hats, socks, harmonicas, tambourines, jump ropes, crayons, all kinds of fun things. And we'll have another Pack the Box party the week prior to Thanksgiving and get those turned in for our club. Last year we had 41 boxes. This year I would love for us to at least have 50. So let's make that our goal. Also, we will be working with Cleveland Academy again coming up around the Christmas holiday. We'll be providing items to the students at the Academy and also doing a banquet dinner. We're going to work with Cook's Food Store to cater that dinner for us this year. So we'll get that taken care of. And then one other thing, we normally do the Prospect Little Library through the holiday season as well. But this year, Prospect, Cheryl told me this yesterday, Prospect is in desperate need of supplies for the students. So we need to do a supply drive for them. And then potentially in the spring, we might do another book drive for the little library. But at this time, we need to help supply bottled water, Band-Aids, masks, both for young children and for the teachers as well, and children's Tylenol. Those were the specific requests for the school. So we want to make sure we honor that as well. So those are the things going on and coming up, and I'll be talking to you guys more about those. But for now, that's where we are.
Hey, Ty, could I give an update real fast?
Yes, absolutely, Andy.
I've contacted almost all the Rotarians, or we've communicated. There's about 15 that I have not. So if I have not called you, or if you said you would call me back, please do so. Right now, we're sitting on $36,450. While we were sitting here, I got a message that someone's giving $1,200. So I'm gonna sit here the rest of the day. So please let us know. I mean, it's outstanding that Rotarians are giving. Some are giving more than last year. Some are giving less. We don't know what your circumstances are, but thank you for giving. We are proud of you.
Hey, way to go, Andy. Good job. Good job. All righty. Cheryl, are you introducing our speaker this morning?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, if you will take over.
Absolutely. I'm very honored this morning to introduce our Director of Bradley County Schools, Dr. Linda Cash. I thank Dr. Cash for being willing to come on today and provide our program. I'm also privileged to serve on her Friends of Pi committee, and that has been just a wonderful and wonderful learning experience for me, and to be able to contribute and give feedback to this marvelous educational experience that is going to happen here in Cleveland, Bradley County. And it's all because of the vision of Dr. Cash. So with that said, I think most of you know who she is. It goes without saying. She's very well respected, very well known in our community. And with that, welcome, Dr. Cash.
Thank you so much. Thank you. First, let me say, I know that a lot of you, I have been working with our teams and with the effects of COVID since March during the shutdown. And I can tell you, as the year moved on through May, the difference that I saw children being at school and not being at school would break your heart. One scenario that still haunts me is at the beginning when we were feeding children, there was a family with a group of 3 little girls. They were absolutely beautiful. They were actually students at Waterville, and they were happy-go-lucky. Then about, I guess about a month in, we saw the personality changes in those little girls. They were hiding behind their parent, reluctant to speak. And even though we were staying in contact with families, we didn't have that day-to-day interaction with our students. So to be able to monitor and know, what their needs are. So before I even start about returning to school, I think it's important to know that schools offer more than academics. We have so many families that without the hot meals that they receive at school, they are not receiving a hot meal, and sometimes no meals at all. Our counselors are heavily involved with monitoring and watching their health. Sorry about that, that light just went off. And of course, I don't know how to turn it back on. But it was amazing to us the number of phone calls we had, because we had a hotline for homework, we had a hotline for social emotional needs, we had a hotline for food. And the uptick in the social emotional needs and phone calls for referring to counseling, or them just wanting to sit on the phone and talk to a teacher or talk to a counselor, was just heartbreaking. It was, they've lost the connection. I received a video probably early May from a young student, a soccer player, and it was just talking about how devastating not being with her teammates, how devastating it was not to be among and speak to her teachers. And I immediately hung up, called the guidance counselor, called and said, we need to check on this child. It's not right. And we did, and we reached out to her and then kept in constant communication with her throughout the remainder of the school piece, so that we could just make sure she was okay. And there are numbers and numbers and numbers of situations like that. So I do want you guys to know that we not only look at that academic side, we're looking at that whole child. And I know that's a term that's thrown out pretty easily now, the whole child, but these families and these children hurt more than we know and understand without being around their peers. So I just want to be sure that when we talk about schools, we're not just talking about getting to school every day or the academic side, but there's a whole piece that schools are that backbone of society. They are what teaches kids as much as we can to extend what parents, or replace what parents are not doing. Education on character, on how to treat each other. In a world where we see a lot of chaos, schools, especially in Bradley County, bring order and civility. And and I know we're technically, legally, socially, whatever, not supposed to talk about the blessings of God or the religious side of it. But every day when we walk in those buildings, every day when those students walk in those buildings, we are putting prayer around them. We're praying for them. Those teachers are reaching out and talking to them about how precious they are, how wonderful they are. And it is truly a county where we feel blessed and proud to be Christians who take on the ownership of our job to mold those students to heart. So it's not just about getting kids in a building. It's about feeding them emotionally, spiritually. It also feeds our teachers. And unfortunately, right now, we are in a state of fear, a state of change. We never know from day to day what's coming out, what we hear, what we plan for one week. The next week, we get another memo that says, okay, now this has changed, so switch this. So when we say the plan is completely ongoing and flexible, it really is. It has to be, because as you guys know, the developments that come out from the COVID are forever changing. And I'm very proud, let me say, of our community for addressing the needs and changing the way that they quickly change the way they treat
Here you go.
them. That has made a difference in the low death rate in Bradley County. It's made a difference in the way that that we look at the numbers. So I just want to say to our healthcare community, to our doctors, to our physicians, thank you for doing the great job you're doing in Bradley County. We appreciate the messages that you send out. And there again, when I talk about messaging, I can honestly say truly that our health department, with Brittany Hopkins as the lead, has been one of our most treasured team members. And actually we have a call with her tomorrow at 11 o'clock to say, what are the updates? Where are we? What's happening? So I kind of wanted to start just with that looking at a whole piece of how important it is for the emotional stability and not just the physical, but the emotional stability of people to be together. People, the isolation to me is scary. I'm glad to see that people are out. I would love to see more people out there with masks. I think we've moved in the right direction with masks. I guess this weekend, it was about 50-50 that I saw, encouraging all of our educators when you're out in public to wear a mask. I think is a big influence as well. So I know there's always a question about you should mandate masks. Our piece is, and you will see it, is that the power of influence is where I kind of operate from. How much can we influence? What's our circle of influence? So there are tons of parents out there both ways. You should mandate masks. If you mandate a mask, we're not coming to school. That would suffocate. I mean, it's just all over the board. So our job is to influence. So I can tell you what I've got a wonderful, wonderful group of parents doing right now is that they are promoting masks, especially with our little girls and our girls, getting their initials, monogrammed on them. They are making it projects. And so whether we as a whole society believe everybody should wear a mask, it still has to be a personal decision, or the political impact that hits will far outweigh the positivity that we're trying to produce. So when people say you should mandate all masks, I was on the phone with a parent yesterday, one of our prized parents, one that's just the most amazing, all in, everybody should be at school. Why? I mean, to the point, why are you doing all the cleaning? Why are you doing? But her one thing was, if you make my child wear a mask, we will not be there. But in the sense, the second thing I said was, well, that's why we have optional for parents. But let me throw this at you. We want to protect our teachers, because if our teachers get sick, then we have to close schools. And they may not be seriously ill, but by healthcare guidelines, we have to live within their guidelines. I said, so if a teacher asked your child, or you as a parent, would you mind if they wore a mask? And she said, well, no, not if the teacher asked me to do it. So I kind of just want to lay that out there. Our teachers are all prepared to wear masks, shields, working with the distancing. But when it's a mask mandate, it becomes political. And that is so unfortunate. It is very unfortunate. I mean, you see the fight in Atlanta and Georgia, and it makes no sense to me. That is such a simple, easy thing to do. But if you mandate it, it becomes political. So when you ask you should all wear masks, I believe that when I'm in public, it is out of respect for the people around me to do that. I hope that that's where everybody else ends up. So I just wanted to start with that. And then I wanted to really talk about the entry. So we've been working on the entry plan with a group of parents, healthcare, mainly the health department, childcare, safety teams, EMS, I mean, just a whole host of people have been working on our entry plan. So we always start with cleaning and sanitation. So in the plan, and our initial input on temperature taking was it's not necessary because they may not have a temperature. It's, you know, the symptoms, they don't always start with a temperature. So we said, okay, because we had pushback on whether you do or don't. Being flexible, we made the change for all temperatures to be taken as the students enter the building. So we purchased, there is probably 20 plus, depending on the size of the school, the temperatures will be taken. We have about 20 or more thermometers. Students will be entering at different doors so that we do not have a backup and it's a quick, it's, you know, shoot the temperature. If they're clean, they go. If not, they're put to the side. They wait a few minutes, recheck it to be sure it wasn't a hot car, or they just had coffee, or those kind of things. And then if the temperature holds, they go to the nurse. The nurse calls, the parent has to come and pick them up. They're immediately isolated. And in each school, there is an isolation space for anyone who is showing symptoms or has a temperature. The temperature number is 100.4. That's the point where they have to go home. We are actually calling parents at 100. As far as cleaning, we have it's a alpha. The chemicals may elude me, but it's a product that kills all the bacteria, and we are doing that daily, wiping down with wipes, everything that you can do. Our air conditioning systems are also the coils are coated to push in probiotics. On Fridays, we do a deep clean where we also spray with probiotics, which are the good bacteria, to build it back up. The water fountains will not be in use, and that's because of the touching. It's not that we're afraid. We're just trying to reduce the amount of pieces and things in the building that are touched. And water fountains are, you have to push, but we do have the bottle fillers. So the bottle fillers, you don't touch it. It's just pushing the bottle in. Kids will still be able to do that. And they can bring their own water bottles, which is what we're suggesting. We also, for social distancing, all of the school plans, when they're in the classrooms, they are as far apart as possible, and they can be in cohorts of 4 to 5. The health department actually tells us we can do cohorts of 10 children, but we're reducing that. Most of our older kids are not going to be working with groups unless necessary, but those cohorts are for to reduce the, another mitigation strategy so that you can reduce the spread if it's there, and it's also for tracing. So they'll have seating charts wherever the students go, and they'll stay in those cohorts at least for 30 days, and then if we can mix them up after that, that they would still stay in those small cohorts. We have had great success with our sports teams on both high school and both middle school campuses. You have, since May, you have had 100 plus football players, 50 plus soccer players, baseball players, just droves of students in sports. And with all the mitigation, like every time the cohort moves, you have to wipe down all the equipment and before the next cohort comes to work. So over the course from May until as of yesterday, we had 5 cases where we had to send students home, but the students were not infected, but there was a family member that was. So the health department says if there is a COVID case in the family, then all the family members have to be quarantined. That quarantine is 14 days. We had one student in that breakdown that did show symptoms. She was not tested, but we did do the 14-day quarantine. So we feel very, very good about all of the cleaning protocol, the distancing, working in cohorts. I went up to watch actually both football teams. I watched both football teams, and it is amazing how quickly the students acclimated to the change. In the weight room, if you're in a weight room or you're in somewhere, all the equipment is wiped down. There's a screening for every athlete, temperature checks, questions. The only thing that's really changed, unfortunately, with our questioning, and we still ask it, but we can't enforce it, is have you been out of Bradley County? And the health department told us now that it is truly communicably spread, and it's everywhere, that we can't isolate a kid or a family or a teacher if they've been out of the county. Prior to that, we could, but still we haven't had any outbreaks. So the things that are out there about washing hands, social distancing, cleaning surfaces has proven a great tool for our school system. So we feel good about the cleaning plan. We feel good about, students in the building with the cohort model. We do have a staggered starts and staggered dismissals so that we never put those kids in large groups. It's going to be very different than we've ever approached it before. And that's what the messaging that we're sending out to our families is that it's not going to be droves of kids in the hallways. It's not going to be standing around and socializing. In their classrooms, they'll be in those small groups or facing forward. And then they are actually elementary is not as effective with the change, but they are walking all in one direction. So they enter one way, they exit another way. And that is just to keep that passing together. Yesterday, working with the health department, one of the things that we had to get clarification on was who's considered a contact. So does a shield work to keep teachers as a non-contact? So as of yesterday, they said that the CDC recommended the shields, and that's the clear shields so that students can see their faces and stuff. I like the cat. And they're saying that would not preclude them from being a contact, but they would just at that point ask them to, if someone had it and they were exposed, they would ask them to move to a mask instead of a shield, and then they would not have the option until their 14 days was up to go back to a shield. So we're trying to mitigate that. There'll be signs on the floor 6 feet apart. Everything that you've seen out in the public, you will see when they're entering and leaving the building. The doors are propped open, so we reduce the amount of people touching those doors. We also, and I will say, we have not had a lot of pushback with this. We've had a little. Visitors are very limited in the building, and you actually have to have an appointment to come in. And if you are a visitor and you enter our building, you will be required to wear a mask. Central office, if they enter a building, they have to wear a mask because we're not a part of any one school, so we haven't become acclimated. So our job is to wear a mask when we're entering buildings or working with students. The one piece that if a teacher is in the front of the room and there's that 6 feet distance, we are in line with our guidance. They don't have to have a mask on at that point because they're doing the 6 foot distancing, because we do want the children to see the faces of the teachers. We want to have them see expressions, and we think that's important. But as the distance closes, we are asking them to wear a mask, especially if you're over a student. We need you wearing a mask. We are hoping with influence that more and more students will wear a mask, but it is not recommended that students or teachers wear a mask for long periods of time. So we're at school about 8 hours. That is not the expectation. It's when you're in that close distance and you can't maintain that distance. A couple of other things, people are talking about a lot about online learning, not online learning. So when we started, we typically have about 75 students in our online program. And so we extended that to 300. So we do have a max of 300. There are 100 students right now in the K-5. There are 200 in the 6-12. We have a waiting list of about 40 students. So what we're trying to let people know, and this is we're having people drop out of online now, and they're which is opening up spaces for the people on the waiting list. But you have to meet certain criteria, like especially if you're in that K-5, there has to be a parent home that can work with you during the day, because it has to be face-to-face learning. So the teacher is online and the student has to be online with them, in that K-5, with a parent there working with them, because there's a lot of practice. And we have to be online with actual instruction period during the day for 4.5 hours with our kindergarten, and 6 hours worth of work for the rest. The high school is a little different in that they're earning credits. And so we have 13 high school teachers, because they have to be certified in their subject area. That one's a little easier to fill, but that K-5 group has to have a teacher. We have to have enough that generates a teacher. And right now, what we're seeing is in our brick and mortar, we're not, the kids that are going to virtual, we hired one, and then we had we had enough that we could put in too. But with the numbers that are required by the state, if you just open it up, and let's say you wanted 10,000, you're going to have to shift all those teachers to teaching virtual. And we don't have the kind of numbers right now that would do that. But at all of our schools, if parents have extenuating circumstances, they contact the schools. The schools are working with them. And what we found out, that a lot of our parents were, they signed up for virtual school. That's not really what they want. They were just saving a slot. So all of our principals now and teachers are contacting those parents to be sure they understand, if you have chosen virtual school, then you're committed for the full semester, because you can't go back and forth, because you lose continuity of education and you don't have teachers. And it's really interesting when we talk to them and we explain the structure of especially that K-5, the structure of you have to be online with your child. Most of them really don't want to do that. But the fear factor of going back when there's so much fear out there is truly the crippling factor. So as my principals are working through each one of those families that are talking, they are working with them. Some of them we are going to allow them to phase in. Some of them we are, so individualizing it is far better than everybody trying to jump into virtual. Virtual is a very different world. You know, my youngest son now is has been at Chat State and is transferring to UTC, and there is nothing that can replace a physical teacher working with a student. His frustrations on the online, and he's 20, and well, let me say, he's a computer science major, so that's his world, but was the lack of explanations. You couldn't get in touch with people. So there's a lot to it other than just saying, let's all go online. There's a tremendous amount of training happening now with how do you actually teach online? What do you do? How do you do this? The state is requiring very specific plans to be turned in about how you manage any virtual learning. It's much different than packets or loading lessons. It's actual direct instruction. You know, I also kind of wanted to address the other plans. So we're working with the health department on the numbers that would indicate we needed to go to a full hybrid, which means we only have 50% of the kids in the building at a time. Or when do we switch to, okay, we've got a major outbreak and now we're going to have to switch all online. Every student would have to go online for a period of 14 days. 14 days is that if people aren't out in the community, they're not if we can, mitigate that, we can get them back to school. So what our wonderful math statistician and the health department are working on, they're looking at the active cases, and the active cases right now, I think yesterday, I may be wrong, 464. So in those active cases, you break down that 0 to 10 and the 11 to 20, because that's the way the health department breaks it down. That's even though we don't typically have 20-year-olds, we'll have 18-year-olds. So you look at that and you say, okay, what kind of outbreak are we seeing? Do we have, so there's a formula that they're working on to tell us, okay, it's time for, Bradley Central has 20 students that have been quarantined, which means we have 20 families that we're dealing with. Let's shut them down for 3 days, clean everything up, and then get back in school. So we're working on some things that logistically make sense to move forward. But within that 464, the 0 to 20, the term was used, it's negligible. I also had one of our board members continue to check with the hospital to see how many children are you seeing, tell me what you're seeing, and they're not seeing our age group, which is very encouraging. But I think we learn more and more about this virus every day. So I also wanted to be sure that we Boys and Girls Club served over 400 students this summer and had no issues with COVID. YMCA were working with their critical care students in 2 locations. They had no issues. Our sports had no issues. YMCA across the state of Tennessee had isolated issues with families, but no spread. I think that's the word they use, no spread. The kids with the sports that we had to send home, it was in the family, but not with the student. And so it's the checks. All of our teachers do have to go through a screening before they come in the building. That is to keep them safe, but to keep everybody else safe. I can tell you, some people say, why are we breaking down the middle and high to come in? It is not really, and this is the health department asked me if anybody asked to be sure, it's not COVID related, it is logistic related. So because they're having to change everything they do, the way students move in the hallway, the way students sit in classes, there are 1,700 plus students at Bradley, about 1,500 at Walker Valley. Lake Forest is sitting over 1,100, and Ocoee is sitting at about 1,100. They wanted to train those students and go through all the protocols with the students in smaller numbers before they got them all back in the building, which we said that's why it's a flexible plan. That's what those administrators wanted. We listened to them. We talked to them. So we feel, along with the American Pediatrics, that the right thing to do with the numbers that we have, and knowing that our population is one of the least likely to be infected, that we are feel very strongly that we're in the right way. We do. I want everybody to know, weekly we check with our health department and their guidance in what they want us to do. I keep in touch with friends at Tenova, and Nancy Kaysen is the chair. And I said, Nancy, if you hear anything coming down the pipe, let us know so we have a heads up. So I don't even know what time it is. Oh gosh, I'm gonna just stop and let you guys ask questions. I do want you to know our principals are reaching out to every single family who is inquiring about online or doing something different.
Dr. Cash, thank you very much for
You're
coming in
welcome.
this morning. I know this is an issue that has some strong opinions about. One thing that I will say, I was struck by, I had not thought about it, which is funny because I used to be in the logistics business, but when you mentioned logistics, it struck me that y'all are having to take in you've got a whole lot of aspects of this and facets of it that you're having to consider and deal with. So sometimes it's not just a simple cut and dried issue.
Correct.
That said, guys, let's have, I think we got time for a couple of questions. I want to preface it by saying this. Let's keep the politics out of it. If a question starts to go political, I'm going to mute it and end it, and you feel free to take it up with me later. So with that said, if anybody would like to ask Dr. Cash a question, please feel free to do so.
Hey, Dr. Cash, this is Bill Johnson, your neighbor and doc.
Bill. Hey, Bill.
I would simply say that the plan that you've outlined is about as good as you can do. Obviously, there are going to be opinions on both sides, but I think that's as good as you can do. So I applaud you all for putting together a good program. Will there be potential for trouble in the future? Yes. Is there trouble if you don't open schools? Absolutely. So I just wanted to say good work. Thanks.
Thank you. And Bill, if you have more suggestions, please let us know. We are always open to listen to better suggestions.
Well, I follow the hospital numbers obviously all the time, and I'd say they're stable, worrisome, but not growing right this minute. So I think, you know, the thing you outlined is quite reasonable. Thanks.
Dr. Cash, thanks.
Rick, okay.
This is probably a challenging time that few people could possibly understand. On the online learning, I understand there are limits, and I think you said 300, and I want to just clarify. So that's because of the limited instructors, or is it equipment? And are there plans to expand that based on parental demand?
Well, let me go back, Richard. A lot of the families that we're working with are misunderstanding what online is. So once we clarify the ones that have already have a slot, that they understand what that is, then we will evaluate it. But it is not based on equipment, because the families that are online do have to have their own equipment. But we are not, the equipment is not the issue. A lot of families that want to go online don't have the internet connectivity that they really need to have in order to do that. So that's one of the issues that some of them have. But yes, we monitor it daily, and if we see that that is a need after school starts and we are not working with those families individually, is not working, we will always revisit. But we would have to shift teachers out of the schools in order to do that, because it is, I'm sorry, let me turn this off. It is, it's also a numbers game at the brick and mortar too. We have to meet the requirements for the state of Tennessee.
Dr. Cash, were you able to receive funding from the state or the federal government through all this stimulus or whatever to help with all of this?
Yes, Jim. First, let me say the CARES Act money, actually, I mean, there were categories that you had to spend your money in. So we're very fortunate, and it's a large number, so I don't want people to freak out, but all the chemicals and the machines, the electromagnetic machines, which actually push the antibacterial material out, clings to the desk. So we bought 2 of those machines for every school. We bought foggers for every school, and then we bought backpacks for every school so they could go in and spray. With the chemicals, the machines, and the manpower, $360,000 went to that project just in that alone. Then the second phase that they did was for online learning. So we bought, I'm going to throw a number out there. I'm not sure it's accurate. I'd have to go back. But to start, we bought 1,500 more devices, and we're in the process now of probably buying about 3,000 more devices. And that's all CARES Act money, or it is coming from a grant from the state. The CARES Act money is federal, and there are grants from the state. So we've gotten quite a bit of money It all has to be for either cleaning, instruction. It's one-time money, so you can't buy personnel with it. But we've got,
Okay.
that's one of the reasons we can do as much of the cleaning operations that we can with that CARES Act money.
All right, guys, I think we're running out of time. Dr. Cash, thank you so much for joining us this
You're
morning.
very welcome. Please
Putting this
send,
program on.
send questions through Cheryl, and we'll try to get you as many answers as we can.